Here we go.
Well, hello there, you amazing, amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Sunday, baby. It's Sunday. It's still Sunday. And this is video 2 of 3. That's it, 2 of 3. Well, actually, 2 of 4, because we've got a live later here tonight where we're going to get into the weeds of the DNA issues and the recent hearing in the Idaho 4 case. And also, over on our other channel, that is the Harsh Family channel, we've got another video, which is another unboxing, an Amazon box. If you've not seen it already, head over there, go check it out. But anyway, what we're talking about in this, we're actually going back to an earlier case, a case that we all spoke about, we all got really angry about, and that is the Jay Slater case, because in the last few hours there has been a post from none other than Mark Williams Thomas. That's it, the perpetuator of rumour, the person who was at ground zero and came out with certain stories that would lead content creators like myself to believe that certain things were amiss. It's quite the guy. But anyway, I'm going to share the post with you now, for those of you who haven't seen it. It says Mark Williams Thomas. This was on Twitter, X. When I covered the Jay Slater case, I did film lots of material to show how the investigation was unfolding. I also have recordings with witnesses that provide context and information which gives clarity and a clear narrative to the very sad situation and the events as they unfolded that night and morning. The case still attracts a lot of attention, hence why I'm doing this post. And no doubt will attract a lot more when a program, which I have nothing to do with, is released. So they're doing a program on the Jay Slater case. They're doing it. It's coming out. It's going to be out, and Mark Williams Thomas has got nothing to do with it. Although I find that very, very hard to believe that Mark Williams Thomas has nothing to do with it. And by nothing to do with it, I mean, look, what could be in a story about Jay Slater coming out? What's going to be in this? I would imagine that a large proportion, if not the biggest proportion of this, is going to be how this case exploded on social media and the cataclysmic effect that this story had on the public and the stories that came from it. We saw them. There were stories of boats that came from Mark Williams Thomas. There came stories of Jay Slater being scared of the B&B and not wanting to go back there, coming from Mark Williams Thomas. There was stories of him being potentially armed because he was scared, coming from Mark Williams Thomas. There was potential links to the criminal underworld, the underbelly, the scourge, coming from Mark Williams Thomas. So when they say, or when he says that he's got nothing to do with this, I find that difficult to believe. He may think that he won't be part of it, but it will be interesting to see what they talk about. What else is there to talk about? The Jay Slater case, which is, as far as I know, there's been no conclusion via the inquest, so there still has to be a conclusion. I would imagine that it's going to come down to misadventure. We've not seen any arrests. We've not seen anything whatsoever, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. And look, I was part of this. I was part of the Jay Slater story. I was part of speaking about some of these things that came up, you know, and it got to the point where I was almost embarrassed because this case just took on in a different direction, where we just poured over everything. And it gets to the point where you know that there's lies, you know that there's things going amiss here, you know that there's people around this case who can't 100% be trusted, but then you have to factor in other things, such as the age of the individuals and what they were potentially doing and how they felt about probably admitting some of the things that was going on there. And look, there was some really, really strange things around the Jay Slater case, and we've seen some really strange things come in the aftermath of it as well. But ultimately, where did all of these rumours stem from? The vast majority of the rumours came from Ground Zero, and none other than the aforementioned Mark Williams Thomas. So again, I'll be quite interested to see this and see what it's about. You know, Jay Slater goes on holiday with his friends, goes to a rave. He then ends up separated from his friends. He then ends up at an Airbnb miles away from where he is, despite himself having a room within sort of 10 minutes away from where this NRG festival is that he was attending. But he ends up a fair distance away with none other than some D-rug traffickers. And he ends up at this Airbnb with these D-rug traffickers, or ex-traffickers. Maybe they've turned over and got a new lease of life, who knows. But he ends up here. He then ends up apparently being offered a lift that he turns down, and then he ends up shit carting off of a cliff, much like Wile E. Coyote does. So it's an odd one. It's an odd story. It's one that's you always feel that there's something that is missing from the story. There's always something that you think to yourself, with all of these other factors involved, with all of these people involved, is it just a case that this lad goes on holiday, ends up at this place, and he tries to walk himself back somewhere? Chris Tenerife brought up a valid point of maybe he never was going to walk an 11-hour journey back to his place. Maybe he was just looking to walk to somewhere that would be a conduit to an easier route, such as a bus stop somewhere, despite there being a bus stop right outside the Airbnb. But apparently the ex-drug trafficker, he'd said there wasn't a bus, there wouldn't be a bus coming, and again around this he offered him a lift and so on. So you can see, even talking about it now, there's some things that make you step back and go, what? But yeah, so Mark Williams is back on it. Like he says, it still gains a lot of attention, which he's seemingly trying to maximise, because he's sort of he always talks in these cryptic tones. Like, I've got stuff. I've got access to stuff. I spoke to people. I spoke to people, and people are still interested. And you feel like fucking grabbing him and just shaking him and saying, well, if you've got all this stuff then, dickhead, tell us what you've got. Stop being cryptic with it and just come out and say, look, I spoke to such and such. This is what they told me. This is what happened. And then I think the excuse is going to be, yeah, I can't do that at the moment because this other program is coming out that I've got nothing to do with. Well, why don't you strike while the iron's hot then, brother? Before this thing comes out, this story comes out, you get ahead of it. Get ahead of it, because I can promise you now that there is going to be a lot of things likely spoken about, again, with the aforementioned, likely how this hit the media and how the media handled it. Channels like mine, like Wax Unlimited or Wax Unfiltered. Freudian slip. But do you know what I mean? We all covered it, and we all covered it in a way that would be off the back end of things that we were told, things that we had heard. You can't escape. You can't escape your being involved. You can't escape Mark Williams Thomas. You can't escape the way that you spoke about certain things and perpetuated certain rumours that exploded and gained a life of their own. There are still people talking about the likelihood of some of these very things being involved in what happened to Jay Slater, despite there being absolutely no solid evidence of that being the case. Yes, we've got videos that seem again to have been taken by potato can, but potato can footage ain't proof of anything. And sadly, videos on YouTube are not proof of anything either. They're just proof of that we can get carried away when certain people talk about certain things and we see the overarching story panning out and that's the way it looks. But again, feelings aren't facts. But anyway, I love you all. I hope you are all well. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend so far. Don't forget to join me live later. And again, don't forget to head over to the Harsh Family channel. The link will be in the pinned comment. And go and check us out over there too. Love you all, and I'll catch you all in a bit. Mwah.